and then we could just remove that completely, and then we'd have, so I believe, if I'm correct, I think that'd be golf professional, if that's his salary area, but we would just remove the whole section of the retirement and just move that money into his salary, because he's in charge of taking out what he wants for retirement, since we don't provide the retirement.
Very good. Thank you, Noel. Well, we're going starting from right to left here. Councilor Beyondich, then Councilor Johnson, then over to anyone else. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you, and I think I'd be okay with that. I had asked at the last meeting how we pay the other contract services for the city, and if we put that in there, the word retirement to the public is not well received when the rest of them are just a salary, so I would be comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I went to Mr. Fingerhus yesterday and asked him if that was something that was important to him, and it's just the way it's always been done. So moving it up should not have taken 4 meetings. It's very frustrating to me that just having asked the right question to the right person. So I will make a motion that we put the $5,000 up as part of the salary and approve the contract on Tuesday.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Councilor Johnson to make that adjustment and move and eliminate that entire clause as recommended by our city attorney. Move that in, that $5,000 into his salary compensation package. Is there support for that? Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3 is the funding status of the public safety building.
Councilor Beyondich.
I was at the Friends of Public Safety where you spoke, and I think that was before any decisions had been made. But I know the public is interested to see where we sit on the funding for that building, if there's a gap, how we're going to go about getting it, and what will fall on the taxpayers of Virginia.
I think I can, this would be a time for me to interject a portion of that. I can answer the question with respect to the entire funding. I would refer to our city finance director and our city administrator for that. But yesterday, I did appear before the legislature on House File 2808, which is sponsored by Representative Lizagard, regarding the capital investment supplemental bill, and as a request that for $2 million additional dollars to be awarded to the budget for the public safety building because of the funding gaps that we have, primarily because the inflationary costs associated with fuel, mobilization, materials cost, and additional B3 compliance. And so that is in the capital investment account. It was indicated that it might be it was being considered to move forward into the next level, into the big bill. The issue is that it may not come off from bonding. It may have to be a cash investment, and I know that the state legislature on the Democratic side is considering that. The Senate did not approve a bonding bill because they wanted an agreement on a tax reduction in taxes and an elimination of the Social Security tax in Minnesota. That didn't go through, so they didn't come to agreement on that. So this is being pushed forward, not for bonding, but for capital investment with respect to potential cash award for that. And so it went well, and so there's that additional $2 million maybe going through the hoppers, but we're not guaranteed with that money. So that being said, I would refer to, do we have any other information? I know that we're about 85% complete. We're asking for $31.1 million, and out of that $31.1 million, whatever we receive from the bonding bill, and if we get any money from capital investment, the remainder of that money, and you can correct me, Britt, will be used in the event that we do get the legislative approval to exempt our bond debt ceiling, and that seems to be moving forward very well and has bipartisan support throughout. Doesn't seem to be any obstacles there. That the rest of that money that we need for that construction would be funded through whatever loan we get from the USDA. Is that correct, Britt? Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich, please continue.
Thank you. So what is the dollar amount that we are short?
Total project cost is looking at about $31 million. We have a $9 million investment from the state of Minnesota. That remaining portion would be funded by USDA in the end. USDA only does end mortgages, and what they do is a 40-year low-interest loan for public safety centers. So in the interim during construction, we would have to take out a temporary bond to do the construction, and then USDA would come and take off all other bonds or anything else we took out of on his debt for the project.
So the project is at 31 million. We have $9 million that we are guaranteed.
Correct.
The rest, we are not guaranteed.
The rest of the city has committed that we were going to finance it through the USDA.
So they will be paying that? Is there going to be a gap, is what I'm
That's a
getting at?
loan, nope, USDA will give us whatever we need.
So it's a loan that the city
the
has to
city
pay back?
For 40 years.
So the taxpayers will be paying that for 40 years?
Correct.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Anyone else? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any other options for funding mechanisms?
We continually try. We do have IRRB money that's not listed in there. We just got a grant for the demolition in the amount of $456,000 for the demo. We are going to go after infrastructure costs because we have to remove every single house has its own water line. That all has to be taken out for the building construction. We're going to get money for that. We're going to go after the Brownsfield money for the cleanup along the Staver and the railroad property. The Staver property is the very southwest corner. We'll get that cleaned up, and then we'll get the railroad properties, a little bit of contamination, we'll get some brownfield money for.
And then when we began this, I know the project costs have increased significantly. I think we started at 18 or maybe 17.
21 was our
Then
start.
it was 21.
Yeah.
Now we're up to 31. And the gap that, I wouldn't say gap, I mean, the inflationary, the bill that's out, the 2808, that's for inflationary cost increase?
Correct.
The $2 million?
A portion of the inflationary cost.
Portion. And then, had we originally asked for more from the I thought we did, and I don't know if we can address what we asked for versus what we received,
Sure.
what we are going to be receiving.
Sure. We wanted, originally, the very first part of it was $13 million. And then the legislature says, no, that's not, we have to figure something else. So it started at $11.5 million. And it went all the way through the conference. Everything was fine until the last day of the legislative session, in which they were getting ready to vote on it. But it was an agreement between two representatives, one from the cities and one from up north, for the $11.5 million. And at the very last minute, a senator from Chisholm made a request for $1.9 million for a new Chisholm Fire Hall. The money could not be allocated because they didn't have anything in bill in the legislature. But what could be allocated for was design and specifications for a specific facility. It was late in the legislative session. There was no other funding source available. So $1.9 million was gleaned from our $11.5 million, and that went to the city of Chisholm. We ended up with $9.5 million.
Okay, so that's how we ended up with the 9.5. Now, had we planned anything, I mean, when we began the process with Wold and had those estimations, had we planned anything for funding mechanisms when we knew that the cost at that point was 21 million, we were requesting 13, went to 11.5, now down to 9.5. So had we made any plans or had Wold given us any suggestions? I mean, it's been a while since we've had those conversations, but for funding mechanisms other than bonding or low-interest loan from USDA?
There is no free money for infrastructure for buildings. That's just not there. So what we can do, best we can do is the grants that we do get for these unique circumstances. And the USDA loan is the best. I mean, there is no place else you're going to find a 2 to 3% interest for 40 years because by state statute, we can only bond for 20. So,
Right.
and in very rare circumstances for 30. So there's no way to get to a 40-year loan unless you go through the USDA. So that was always been part of Wold's design, is they have a team that's working on the USDA application with us.
And that was, I think, one of the reasons we
picked
chose
them,
them, because
yes.
they had that experience in working with the USDA.
Correct.
And then I guess my last question on this would be, over the course of that 40-year amortization, the bond would offset the payments for the first, what is it, a 10-year bond, 20-year bond?
The bond we have to take out to construct, it'll probably be an 18 to 24-month bond, callable
And
on
then
that
the
date.
USDA loan
And
would
the way
kick
the
in?
USDA program works is they don't allow any other people to be on the mortgage to
Right.
them. And so they will pay off every single other person, and they will require the state to drop their requirement as well, because they need to be the only ones on that mortgage.
And then have we figured out if the city, what those bond payments would look like over the, or not bond, excuse me, the mortgage payment?
Yes, and I will have to find that. That was way back when Wold's presentation. It was quite a long time ago. They are coming in April to come do an update, so I will ask them
We
to
get
find
that
that.
information,
and update
because
it.
I think that's important going forward as,
It was very manageable for what our current costs for our buildings today are. It wasn't much more than what we were already going to be paying, so that's why we felt.
so
it was
if you could get
prudent.
that information going forward when they come back, that would be great. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. When you mention the bond, does that affect any other bonds that we would have out as a city?
That's why we have that legislation that's in your packet. We can only legally there is certain types of bonds the city takes out that affects your debt limit, not all of them. Street construction bonds do not, utility construction bonds do not, charter bonds do, and then bonds for building structure do. So our debt limit is only $11 million. It's based on our taxable market value. We know we need more than $11 million, so we need the legislature to approve a one-time increase to allow for us to do this bond and then USDA loan to do this building. It is not unique. Other cities have done it, which is why the Senate and the House representatives have both agreed to approve this. They've sent it on to the governor as part of the omnibus tax bill, I believe.
It will be part of the omnibus
Has
tax
not
bill.
been approved yet. So this legislature is fully behind us, fully supportive, and understands what we're trying to do. Like I said, not uncommon, not unique. We just need that approval to do that.
Thank you. And I have one other item. Has the city received other monies through the legislature for the city of Virginia for projects?
Lots of money.
Lots of money, yeah. The Iron Trail Moors Event Center was the biggest one.
So I know every year we are asked what our number one priority is, and I want to say the last 2 years, we may have just said public safety and put nothing else on there so they could focus on that. Did that affect us at all?
That's
I
where we
mean,
got this-
why we didn't get any more money
For what? What would,
for the public safety?
no, we asked for the debt limit increase is what we asked for, and then the additional inflationary costs. These two bills that are in your packet is the reflection of what we asked for.
So what other funds did we receive? And what are the projects for?
Iron Trail Moors Event Center, we received, I believe it was 12 million, Sherry?
But in this last one, in the last round, did we receive monies for any other projects?
They did not pass any bonding bill, any tax bill, or anything in the last legislature. Nobody got any money in the state.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we had requests, but no bonding bill was passed last year. So just real quickly, to encapsulate, this debt limit that's required, that we're asking for, is, that goes against our bond debt. There's a state formula. It's 3% of the total market value of your city. So at 394 million some odd dollars we have, you multiply that by 3%, and that comes out to about 11,700,000 and some dollars. That's what we were able to bond for. I think we've been prudent as a council, particularly from our staff, that we've retired the bond debt that would go against our ability to bond. So we could bond for the entire amount. But what this legislator said, and the legislator says at the testimony we gave last month, I think January 25th, at the tax committee, the question was, well, why is that so low? Well, this formula has been in place for decades, and they need to change the formula to upgrade it to give the cities the authority to do it at a higher rate than 3%, but that's the way it is now. And so we're asking for that. And so if we bond entirely for all the bond that goes against their bond debt, it's about 11,700,000 and some dollars. Well, we still need at least 17 million now more from the USDA. So in order for us to get that, the USDA requires that we have the ability to pay through a bond. In order for us to get the bond, to get the loan from the USDA, we have to have special legislation. And that was the purpose of that special legislation last year. Unfortunately, it didn't pass because there was no bills. So we're going to get it on the crunch time, and we will hope to have that passed this year. It appears as though everything's moving forward in that regard in the omnibus bill, and we're in it right now. So that's where we're at with that. And so I think when we set our legislative priorities, I think it was primarily, and I believe if I remember correctly, Councilor Johnson had made it clear that, and I agree, I think we all agreed that the public safety building was the highest priority that we had in order to get the funding for that, to get that moving forward without making significant compromises that would jeopardize the integrity of the services that we provide there. So does that help a little bit more? Okay, thank you. Councilor Motley.
So pending everything going through, ultimately this falls on the taxpayer. How do you go about addressing this? How would the taxpayers pay for this building? Is this something where you look at a 1% like you did with Iron Show Motors Event Center? Like, how do you put this on the taxpayer?
It's a levy. Levy would pay for the payment. And so then our budget would have to include this payment for the USD loan.
It does, the difference between the Iron Trail Motors Event Center and the Public Safety Center is that the Iron Trail Motors Center, we have a 1% sales tax. The revenue comes of that. That money is used, the revenue is to pay off the bonds. So there's no, the taxpayer, there's not a directed burden on the taxpayer other than the sales tax that everybody pays in addition from the region. This is not a sales tax issue. It is a bond issue, which is required that we have to levy for that over the long period of time. So the taxpayers will be paying for that over a 4-year period on a levy.
So I'm totally novice. So is this reflected on taxes or how does that?
When we set the budget,
Yeah.
this will be number one, budget, and then everybody else falls underneath that. So we got to make our payments, and then every other department has to fall in line with what we got left out of the levy.
Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Totally new to me, but this, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It was a great question. Okay. Anything else on item number 3 under Building and Grounds? Britt?
Thank you. Item number 4, the Friends of the Greenhouse Proposed Memorandum of Understanding. This comes from the 2/21/23 Committee of the Whole.
I will move the proposed memorandum of understanding.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the proposed memorandum of understanding for the Friends of the Greenhouse. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. In doing this, will that, will our employees will they be taking over more of the duties from what Frog was doing?
We have Brian Silver, Park and Rec Director here.
It's Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. We will be working with Friends of the Greenhouse, coordinating their volunteer efforts in addition to other groups' volunteer efforts to ensure the care of the plants.
So we have another group of volunteers that will be working on this?
We have some school groups and that are interested in assisting watering the plants and caring for the plants, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay, any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. On just item number 4, when it's property damage missing items, so Frog is the 501c3, they're a nonprofit. They carry their own liability insurance, is that correct on that? Okay. And then when it says any plants, property, or monetary donations to the greenhouse must be approved by the city before they may be received and inventoried. Just a quick question on that. The current plants that are in the building, who owns the asset of those plants?
There's a mix of both. We have some, and there's some that they have brought in that are not ours,
And does this, okay,
which is the problem, which is why we clarified a little more. We need to approve, we need to know what's being brought in, so we need them to have a little better system about telling us what's here to stay and what's here for transition, what's.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just need to discuss a little
so
more.
that language will tighten that up and clarify anything
Correct.
coming forward if it's property of the city, or it would have to be written permission from the city if they're bringing in anything additional.
Correct.
And then I guess that's what I was wondering in terms of maintenance, of maintaining just the city-owned plants is what I I guess why I was reading that and wanting to understand.
Mayor, may I?
Brian?
One of the reasons that this is in there is so that I don't decide to thin my irises around my house and donate them to the greenhouse, and then all of a sudden, we have 12 boxes of irises that we feel obligated to figure out what to do with. Now, if somebody wants to donate irises, I've got plenty of places to plant irises around town, so that may be a bad example, but it's to minimize the house plants and things that really are not appropriate to be in the greenhouse, just showing up, and then we're taking on the liability and responsibility of caring for things that are really not in the greenhouse's vision.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. And then who decides, Brian, on what you want to accept and what you don't?
We'll be working with the Frog Board on that.
Okay.
I mean, I have in my mind some things that we would not want to be accepting, which prime example would be, after a funeral, families have all of these plants that they are looking for something to do with. I don't want to become that location that every post-funeral family goes to donate their plants, because that's really not in the greenhouse's best interest.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Thank you, Brian. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Item number 5 is approve the Minnesota State Facilities Use Agreement with Minnesota North College for use of Stockball Field.
I'll move to approve.
A move to approve by Councilor Paulson. Is there support? Support. By Councilor Freeby. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Item number 6 has 2 items beneath it. It's Iron Trail Motors Event Center ATM site rental agreement with Liberty Coin. It's the first item.
Okay, thank you. And Liberty Coin is owned and operated by a local vendor. Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, the contract says that after 40 transactions, we get a certain 50 cents a transaction. How do we verify that what we're getting is equivalent to the use?
Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director, one more trip to the podium. Thank you.
Just going to move my chair up here. He does have a report that he prints out for us, and it's available for us anytime that we wish to see it, showing the number of transactions and the amount of transactions. That report does not have any personal information or account numbers attached to it. It just shows us a strict number of transactions that were made on each of the 2 ATM machines.
All right, I appreciate that information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We need action yet? Do not need action? We do. We're looking for action.
I'll make the motion to accept the ATM site agreement with Liberty Coin.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
And the second item under the Iron Trail Motors Event Center is approve the amusement game site agreement with Liberty Coin.
Thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Further discussion? I spent a lot of money in that lollipop machine. And I've only been successful on a number of occasions, so I hope it's a moneymaker for us. So it has been moved and supported. Further discussion, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm fine with the contract. I just have one other question, if you don't mind. Just in being in the facility over the course of figure skating, and what I noticed is that there is no candy vending. There's no like snack chips vending. And so when the concession stands are closed, there's nowhere to have the kids get a little snack or something. There's just beverage vending. And Brian, I'm just wondering, I know we have contracts with Sullivan for concessions and stuff like that, but I'm wondering if the city would if it would be any benefit for the city to purchase vending machines to stock some of our concession items. You can answer that, but one observation that I made, when you're there for 6-7 hours and there's nowhere to get a little quick snack if concessions.
All right, well,
Concessions are closed.
I think I need to sweep our office for bugs because we were just discussing this as a staff this past week of looking into purchasing some of these or one of these machines for that very purpose. The issue that we came up with in our staff meeting of doing this is where to put that machine. So that's where we're currently evaluating. And we've decided not to go the route of getting a machine that would be refrigerated or anything just for the added utility cost, but we are currently actively looking at doing that and then stocking it with the same product that is coming out of our concession stands, because we already have all the clear agreements for those products and everything.
And I think that would be a pretty decent stream of revenue. It would
Yep,
just take
and we would price
stocking.
it the same as our concession stands.
Yeah, so I guess, I didn't mean to segue on that, but as long as when I was looking, where could I find a little bag of chips? I could get a big lollipop if I could capture one, or I could get some soda or whatever, but nothing, no little snacky items in the concession stands.
And like I said, within the past week, that's something that we have been discussing and looking into.
I'm in support when you come and give us a report on that. Thank you.
All right, hopefully it'll be within my spending limit.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Thank you, Brian. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 6 is the review of the updated rental code and fee schedule from the February 6, 23 special meeting.
Thank you. And I did ask our city administrator, Britt, a question. I misread part of that rental ordinance, and I thought that $250 a unit was pretty spendy, but she clarified to me that, and I reread the agreement, it's $250 per building. So that makes it a lot more palatable for me moving forward. And so with that comments, looking for comments, questions, concerns, action by the council. Councilor Motley.
I like nobody's gonna like potentially paying more, but looks like planning and zoning did drop the prices. And they also did get rid of the $100 parking fee that they were suggesting. So there has been changes to this since the last public meeting we had. So to me, I think this looks pretty good.
Yeah, and I think the putting together this ordinance with the city through planning and zoning, it comes down to the fee schedule. This is a recommendation on the draft for this from planning and zoning. So for us to decide if this is going to meet the needs of the city and if it's palatable for us to move forward with the recommendation by planning and zoning. Thank you. Yes, please, Councilor Motley.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it does look like if there's a landlord that has multiple units, there is a break in the price. They're not paying a set $250. It's actually broken down and reduced for the more units that you have, so.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Councilor Motley. Councilor Johnson?
And I'll bring this up again. There's two separate issues here that we need to do. We need to make sure we're approving the rental ordinance first, and then comes the fee schedule. And there seems to be very little discussion about the actual ordinance itself. So I will make a motion that we finalize the ordinance and move forward with what we need to do to publish and enact the ordinance itself.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson moves to approve and enact the ordinance for the rental code. Is there support for that?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. I'm sorry, Councilor Beyondich.
You. Has our police force had a chance to read through this, and do you have any comments to make on it? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. So the ordinance has been moved and supported to approve the ordinance Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Now back to the fee schedule. Counselor Johnson?
So one of the questions that came up that was not answered at the public hearing is, are these fees annually or are they 3 years?
The fees are annually. The inspection, once you're successful, is every 3 years.
So we're looking at the annual, I'm on page, there are no page numbers. I'm on the fee right before item 8 in the packet. Is there a page number? Oh, yeah. So every year, if I have a apartment with a unit with 101 units, it's a $2,000 registration fee,
The $2,000 license fee.
license fee. Okay. And that makes sure that that's keeping us knowing when and where all of our units are. So every year, and I think that's reliable. I think it's a good idea. Right now, we're kind of guessing at how many units we have based on some census data and some other questioning, some St. Louis County. That there's no firm number because we have no way of doing that. So this allows us to keep up to date and keep our citizens who are renting safe, because every year their building's being registered as a rental unit. So I think it's fair. I think it's something that it's a little hard to swallow the first time, but folks who want to continue to run a business in the city of Virginia as a rental landlord, this is going to be a part of those business. And $250 divided by 12 is $2 a month. I have to say that this allows us to keep people safe, and I don't see the need to raise rent $2 a month as a jab at the city, because we want to make sure our citizens are safe. So I think this fee schedule appears appropriate, and the only people I have talked to are landlords who own 1 or 2 properties, and those landlords maintain those immaculately, and they understand, and they're not opposed to registering their properties because they're going to have no issues moving forward with this. So I'm supportive of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you, and I would wholeheartedly agree. I have family that has rental property down in the Minneapolis area, and they watch our meetings, and they had absolutely no problem with this. This is a cost of doing business and to keep our citizens, residents safe. The one question I have is, I know at our last meeting, when we talked about this, where we did have a lot of landlords come and talk, I had suggested that we have a meeting so we can talk to them more about this. Did that ever happen?
I know Planning and Zoning had it on their agenda, but I don't know if they invited landlords. So we certainly could have another meeting before, because we do have to do 2 readings before the ordinance is passed.
Okay, and I know the planning and zoning, this was actually put back onto the city, and they did the work, and we're agreeing with it, but I know they were pretty hands-off on this part of it. The ordinance is what they drafted and brought forward. They were just using previous examples for that fee schedule. So I feel like we are sidestepping a little bit. It's back on planning and zoning when it should have come from the council, that we should have been working on this and doing this. And I really want to include the people this affects and explain to them. And I know at the last meeting, there were several that were upset. But after the meeting, when we sat down and really talked, I think they understood where we were coming from and why this is important. But I really want to make this transparent to our citizens and the folks that this will affect, that they do have a voice in what we're doing and understand why we're doing it. The fee schedule is not for the city to make money. This is to pay for the cost of what this will, what we have to pay to have it done and keep people safe. So I really would like to have a meeting and explain all of this to those interested parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich, so a rebuttal or some additional information from Counselor Johnson, then we'll go over to Counselor Paulson. Counselor Johnson?
And I agree with Counselor Beyondich, but I would also remind you that there's hundreds of people who don't have a voice who are living in those buildings. And I think that by having our readings, that's people's opportunity to come and understand. I don't think having an additional separate meeting is going to bring anybody but the three people who are already here and very clearly voiced what they felt about the fee schedule. And as you said, we've already discussed that with them. So I think that moving forward, we schedule the readings, the two readings, and we make sure people know that that's their opportunity to come. Because that's how it started. We scheduled the first reading and people had concerns, so we backed up. And now we're at the first reading of the new iteration, I guess it would be, of this schedule. So, I think the other people, we did have one renter here, which was amazing to have somebody come and say, yes, this is what I need to be able to be safe. So I'm in agreement about having additional input, but that's part of the process with the reading. So that's where I'm at with that.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Yes, the purpose is to move from committee of the whole meeting to the first reading of the city council, and then the second reading of the following city council, whereby people who have concerns or comments can come to that. If we have to discuss this further, we certainly could at those readings. So thank you for that, Counselor Johnson and Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just, point of clarification then, on the code fee worksheet, I have a paper copy, so I'm not in my computer packet to tell you guys what page, but it's the breakdown of the annual license fees and what the, I guess, annual revenue would be. And what we're saying is they're going to be inspected, they'll be paying this fee once a year, but inspected once every 3 years. So is there an additional inspection fee, or is that, as I'm seeing, re-inspection fee, not an actual initial inspection fee? Does the license include the inspection fee?
Yes, unless there is a complaint that is found to be valid. If we get a phone call that your tenants haven't had hot water for the last 3 months, that's a valid concern, and then that would be the $200
That's the
violation fee.
re-inspection fee?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
And then if we've come back, that's also, it says third there for reinspection fee. If we've told you to correct this and we're here for our third inspection because you haven't done it yet, then you're going to get another fine for it.
okay. Is there anywhere in this that they actually would lose their license to be a renter or to be a landlord if they're not in compliance, say at year 3 or year whatever? I didn't necessarily see something like that in here, but,
No, it doesn't say we're going to take their license. It says we're going to charge them with a public nuisance, which is a misdemeanor.
so it's a continuation of a fee?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other point of clarification, I know when we had Dana Helton in here, well, actually, she was at the planning and zoning meeting, and we were discussing how that would impact their budget with the cost. Now that it's not a per unit, I think that makes more sense.
Right.
Because that would have been very cost prohibitive for units that had that many, I guess, that many units. But, so I want to know, on the 101 units up, we have quantity of 1. What unit is that specific one? So I'm thinking we have Alice Nettle, Rushlow, what are those larger? Okay. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to understand who they affect. And then
I believe it's Raintree in Midway, isn't it not? Raintree Rest, or Birchwood?
Birchwood East, Birchwood West. Yeah,
We
Birchwood.
have to ask the right people the right questions.
Okay, so is that 101 unit, is that accurate, that we only have 1 over that amount? I just want to make sure we,
These, remember, these are using 2014 information. This is, we haven't
So
done.
we might
the-
need that updated, and how, that was my, I guess that's my next question. How, as we're doing this, how do we get it updated? Is it up to the landlord to identify units and let the city know?
The two ways we did it when we did the commercial garbage rate increase was I got the list from the utilities of what they know
Okay.
by meter, who's got multiple units. Then I got the list from the assessor's office, and I combined them and found who was
Okay,
doing what the assessors know is classified as an apartment tax classification. So that's how we got this in I updated it in 2016.
okay.
They're garbage
So
rate.
would we get a kind of a new estimation on
I will work on for that,
the
yeah.
number of locations? I like the unit breakdown, I think that makes sense to me. I just think the number of locations might be adjusted according to, because I'm thinking we might have more than on the 51 to 75, 76 to 100, and 101 units and up. I almost feel like we have more than just 4 of those complexes.
I do know when we timed the raise of garbage rates, it was just the 4, because if you remember, we stepped them.
Yep.
It was the 4 we stepped, it was only the 4 largest ones, which was Washington, I gotta look back to. But yes, I will verify that, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so if we could just get that, I think, and then just the fact that this is an annual fee that includes the initial inspection, and inspections would be conducted once every 3 years. So that's what I was looking to have clarified. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Okay, we do not have a motion on the floor. Is there any information or any comments, questions, concerns, or council action moving forward? Counselor Johnson?
Would move the proposed rental fee worksheet forward for approval.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the rental fees as proposed in your packet to the next council meeting for the first reading. Is there support? Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to see it updated prior to me saying yes going forward.
Okay.
Because the last location and unit counts based on 2014 information. So I think I'd like to see that updated before I move forward saying yes.
Okay, so it has been moved and supported. Hopefully we'll have that information for you by that time. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Johnson,
Aye.
Karen Yes. Puffy,
Aye.
Motley,
Yes.
Leap,
No.
Paulson,
No.
Yondich.
Passes 4-3. And I'll just preface my vote as yes, only because we still are moving it forward to the council meeting for reading number 1, then reading number 2. Those are opportunities for us to change and make adjustments. This is just to move it forward for additional discussion instead of delaying it any further. So that's the purpose for my yes vote. Okay, motion carries 4-3. Britt?
The next item on the agenda is the review of comprehensive plan, section 5 regarding the housing study.
Now, this was brought forward by Counselor Motley for the agenda, so Counselor Motley, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I was just wanting to kind of read a couple of things. It looks like this was created in 2016, and see if we can get any council input going forward on this. In section 5.1, introduction, housing plays a critical role in defining a person's quality of life. From a new resident or visitor's perspective, it provides a visual indicator of the community's character, including prosperity and vitality. Nearly half of Virginia's housing units, this is in 5.2, nearly half of Virginia's housing units were built prior to 1940, and over 2/3 of the homes were built before 1960. This is page 35 if you're on the paper copy. So according to U.S. Census 2010, of Virginia's 4,665 dwellings, approximately 60% are occupied and 40% are renter occupied. I think those numbers are off, and it's definitely more rental property in the city now. On page number 36, 5.3. In fact, since 2010, the U.S. Census has not recorded any new construction of housing units. Households are projected to decline through 2030 by approximately 2.4%. With the pertinent demographic projections provided, it is likely the city will have the quantity of housing units necessary. However, the quality of housing that is available may not be suitable to attract new buyers or accommodate move-up housing. So, also, I'm going to read section 5.4, which is goals and policies. But before that, as you guys know, and I keep reiterating, I door knocked. I covered pretty much the whole city of Virginia over 5 months, and then we need to find a way to have a plan going forward for new development of middle income / senior living housing. It was continuously, when I door knocked and talked to people, the people that gave me their time continually reiterated middle income housing / senior living. So that's just a sidestep. As of 5.4, which is the goals and policies, goal 1, it says achieve a diverse and balanced supply of market rate and affordable life cycle housing. Section C, support development of new renovated affordable housing. B, let's see, B, 5.4B, plan new residential areas as complete neighborhoods with a range of housing types, densities, price points. D, work collaboratively with industry and business to identify and provide safe, decent, affordable housing to meet the needs of their workforces. It just seems like some of this, I don't know if is maybe up to date, potentially with what the citizens of Virginia are requesting when I door knocked. I feel that the goals and the policies need to be slowed down and possibly be revisited. And so I don't know if this is something we can talk about going forward or develop some type of plan with whoever's in charge of our housing, but we need to figure out something, a new development. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. And I believe that over the course of the years, we've been trying to do that. We try to follow the comprehensive plan. The challenge that we have is finding the land that's available within our curtilage. We, of course, as you're well aware, we are landlocked. We have some properties that are available for development. We did, and it was a controversial purchase of that property up in Midway, which would take a significant amount of infrastructure preparation in order to accomplish that goal, but that's the purpose to have that for potential new housing development there. We have had some interested parties in putting new housing development in the city of Virginia, but the challenge for us has been to try to find a developer that are willing to do that, to put that kind of type of housing in. And I know Britt has had some contact and some conversation with some individual developers that are interested in investing in this regard. We have a private developer over there on the old Midway motel site that is looking and trying to negotiate something for that to address and comply with the information that's provided in that comprehensive plan. So we have made efforts to which to do so. We haven't been successful because we don't have the land that's available, the property that's available, but more importantly, I just say we do have the property, more importantly, to find a developer to do that. And I think we're all interested in following the comprehensive plan to find the four-legged stool, the market rate housing, the market rate, the workforce housing, the market rate rentals and condominiums, the market rate rentals for seniors, and then some other subsidized low-cost housing in some certain areas. Those are the areas that we're looking at, and we've been working hard in which to try to accomplish that goal and objective. We should be revisiting the comprehensive plan on a regular basis to determine whether or not we're following that. And I think once our new planning director gets on board, I know John Sullivan is working diligently on that. Unfortunately, he left, and so we're kind of in limbo right now until we get a new planning director. I think if I'm correct, Britt, that would fall on the planning director to come to us with some examples and make those contacts in order to accomplish the goals and objectives that you just described. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is very timely that this is coming forward, and I appreciate what's in our packet and revisiting this, because I was part of the comprehensive planning team, so it's kind of funny that this was from 2016, and here we are in 2023, and things really have changed a lot with our new, with the new Rockridge School, with our the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, with our new public safety. There are a lot of things that have changed. And I know this is a living, breathing document that the council is supposed to revisit, and it is in a Word format, a Word doc format, so the city council has a ability to create or to change. And just reading, I wouldn't say create or change, I would say language, create or change language within this living, breathing document. And I, just after reading through some of these things, some of the questions that, I was just kind of dipping my feet and getting my feet wet, being a part of the comprehensive planning committee. And some things that I think I would like to see is maybe we need to, I know John Sullivan had been working, we worked at the Midway site. I think there's already, and I think we worked on the site by the school with SEH. John worked with SEH on both of those parcels, I believe. So that might be a good foundation starting point. But when John Sullivan had worked with Matt Reed, I believe putting the cost for putting infrastructure up in Midway was quite expensive, and I want to say it was like per lot. I can't remember if it was a half an acre or a quarter of an acre lot, but I think for cost for development, it was like $300,000 is what I remember, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think it's timely we visit this and actually put a plan together going forward. And in that plan, I would like to see, to have a definition or a map defined of all of our available land areas. And that also may change with, the school moving, and now that the school has relocated, what some of those properties, they may be more attractive to a developer, even though, building costs are high right now. But in this comprehensive plan, I would like some definitions. Maybe we could work together on getting those definitions of market rate, workforce housing, affordable housing, and getting those, what is the actual definition of that? Because when even the Kutaska Community Action Group came forward, there were terms such as affordable housing and workforce housing. And from what I've read, they are not the same, so I would like to have them, maybe we could work as a team or whatever and look at actual definitions with our new community development planner in place. And then I would think that it would make sense to, as we go forward, to say, here's, single-family dwellings, here's what we would like to see, whatever it is, that we kind of come together and form this plan. But I think it's very timely, Councilor Motley, and I thank you for doing this. I would also like to see us work, we've received some emails about some groups, as the mayor was alluding to, that we're maybe looking at different sections of land in our community for different housing project type development. And I'd like to understand what TIFs mean when you're overall, when someone is coming forward and they're looking for either tax abatement or subsidization in a TIF format. I would like to maybe schedule a time where we could have some training on TIFs and what that means for the taxpayers of Virginia, the residential taxpayers of Virginia overall, when the city doesn't in fact create a TIF district, how that impacts their taxes, as well as a study of, does the city of Virginia want to actually issue TIFs for any type of housing other than commercial, where we would see the rate of return of a TIF district faster in a commercial rather than a multi-dwelling, residential building. So I don't know what we need to do to move forward, but I think it's really timely, and I think that this document has changed since 2016, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to revisit it and then revise anything that makes sense to revise. But I really, for me personally, it was a great review, and I would like to see some of those terms get specific definitions. And I don't know if that's something that we want to immediately get our new community development planner and have her kind of go through that. But I think defining that will help us tremendously moving forward with deciding, we are landlocked, what are our available land opportunities, and then how do we best, instead of people coming into our city and saying, hey, we want to put this here and we want to put that there, I think it would make sense for us to actually have a wonderful overall plan of how we want to use any of our available spaces that we have and how best to serve a growing community in light of the new school and all the changes that have taken place since 2016. So thank you for letting me talk so long. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Before I go to Counselor Johnson, I think, I would like to see us, when the community planner comes on board, that's going to be the first responsibility to review the comprehensive plan to determine how the plan in the city, review the old plan, the plans that the framework that was established by the previous planner, by John Sullivan, and to come up with a working plan, some changes, some suggestions to the document, and then sit down with all the councilors, have a working session about the public, about the comprehensive plan, how we make those changes, how we move forward, and what our planning director's suggestions are based on the training and experience that they had in their previous job as a community developer. So I think we need to review it. I think we need to get a community planner on board to make some adjustments, have time to read it through that comprehensive plan, and make some suggestions on how we move forward to update it and have a working session with the city to do so. And including in that would be some training with respect to TIF and TAF. So thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, yeah, I agree that the definitions definitely need to be cleared up. So I'm struggling with this because we have a whole population of people that live in crap, and I'm going to say that very bluntly. And it's assumed that those folks are low income because of where they live. And that's not necessarily true. There is not the stock of housing that people who are working full-time, making $15 to $17 an hour can live in. On the ride-alongs I've been on, there are folks who are living next to people who are low income. But when something is designated low income Section 8, there's not a sign on the door. There's not something that says this is where they live. You wouldn't know if they were getting assistance or not unless you asked them. And if they told you, that's how you would know. Here's the comprehensive plan. It's been sitting on my desk since we got it. I open it regularly. I look at it. We need housing for young families. The mayor bought us this book, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. And one of the best parts of this book says, you can't just ask people to come to town and do something. You need to tell people, like you were saying, Councilor Paulson, this is what we need, this is where it can be, this is what we can offer you, can you help us? And I think that's what's missing. The housing study, we rode around on buses, and the gentleman doing it when we were on South Side near my home, he's in all seriousness looked at us and said, people really live here? And the answer was yes, in one of the houses. That's actually 3 apartments. So the rental code is going to be the best first step that we can take to solve this problem, because beautiful old homes are partitioned up to 3 or 4 floors, and when there's a police call, they're sent to an address, apartment B, which means absolutely nothing unless the police department has been there before and know who they're dealing with. B could be the basement, B could be the second floor, B could be the back unit. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to clean up to be able to take care of housing. But there really is, my brother-in-law and sister are fortunate to be buying a home contract for deed from someone who's very understanding and reasonable about monthly payments. My brother-in-law works full-time, my sister works 2 part-time jobs. They have a little boy, he's just a year old, and they need affordable housing. And the affordable rental properties available to them are absolute dumps. The heat works most of the time, the windows have plastic on them, and then you put a blanket over it, and then you tuck it in so that it's not drafty. So what we really are looking for is what I'm looking for is trying to figure out how to get young families, people who are working for us, working as CNAs, housing that they can be proud to live in and not afraid that their roof's gonna collapse or that the furnace is gonna go out tomorrow and not be fixed for 3 weeks. That's to me, so as we move forward, having what Section 8 means, what's affordable housing, what's workforce housing, what's market rate, all of those things are important because I believe there's a perception that just because you're on Section 8 means you are not you don't want to live in a nice place and you're sponging the system. And that's not true of everybody. There's good renters and bad renters. I stopped renting because I didn't want to have to deal with it. I know that has happened a lot. And so there's a lot of empty rental units because people are tired of trying to find renters. But as we're looking at this housing, I think we just really need to be careful as well that we're not going to create a policy that discriminates based on economic status. And I want to put that out there because just because someone is on assistance doesn't mean anything other than they're working their way up. My mom did that from nothing. We were on Section 8 when I was little. We lived in Birchwood East. And that allowed for my mom to be able to save to buy a house out in Britt. And we lived there. I rented many, many places out of college in Virginia. Several of them I'm not proud of, but it was what I could. I wasn't low income. It's what I could find and what I could live in. So as we move forward with this, I think it's definitely great. And I also want to make sure we're including the public on this, reaching out to folks who are living in Section 8 housing if they're willing to speak to us and what their goals are, because that's what this is. It's about building on. We had an opportunity with Kutaska that was tabled, which means no discussion. And that frustrates me because we sent a message to many people that the city of Virginia doesn't even want to talk about this right now. So that this has come back up. I'm happy about that, but I think we missed an opportunity a month or a month and a half ago to have this conversation then. So I appreciate the time and I'm glad we're going to move forward on this because this will help build our stock of people who are willing to work at the new hotel we want, at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, at the places that need middle income, entry level working so that we can build our community and really thrive in the whole region, not just Virginia, but Eveleth, Gilbert, Virginia, the rural areas, there is a need and I think this is the first step to filling it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So as you brought this up, Councilor Motley, I think bring our new community planner on board, have her that opportunity to review the comprehensive plan and have a working session to discuss all these items, including some training for us with your stiff and TAF. So thanks for bringing that up and hopefully we'll be able to move forward with something in the future. Councilor Motley.
Is it too early to maybe set a date for something like that, or?
We could, but I would, from my perspective, I think it's a little premature right now until we get the community planner on board and review it and then set a date for us to sit down and have this training session and talk about this and give staff the time to prepare. Any other comments, Councilor Johnson?
I appreciate what you're saying, Councilor Motley, so I will make a motion to direct staff to get on our list of directives, that'll be there, to organize and schedule a training with the comments that we all brought up today before June 1st.
Okay, a motion on the floor by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the commercial driver's license education.
And I know that we discussed this last week. There were some questions about how we go about requiring our staff to obtain their commercial driver licenses. This was put on the agenda by Counselor Beyondich. So just I'll preface this by saying, I know it's expensive, but we invested in our employees. And so moving forward to get their Class A license is important that we do. I think in the past, we've tried to hire people that have the Class A license and they didn't have it. And so whether we require them to get it prior to that or we help them do that as part of their career development opportunity. And if they leave within a certain period of time, they have to pay us back, those kind of things. So I'm comfortable the way we're currently operating it, but that being said, to just my personal opinion, move over to Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And yes, this continues to be a thorn in my side. As I had once applied for a city job and I could not even turn in my application unless I had the complete licensure for that job. So I find that hard to believe that nobody will apply if they don't have that license. Furthermore, I don't believe our taxpayers should pay for that. I know school teachers have to take continuing education to keep their licensure, to keep their job. That is not paid for. Nurses are the same thing, and I think we've just set a bad precedent on this. So on these CDLs, what does it cost? What is the total cost to attain one?
Well, I'll refer that to our Finance Director, Sherry. What does it cost to get our employees a Class A license?
Mayor, councilors, and I will refer to Public Works Director Jim Rosovich, but the last purchase orders I've seen come through are anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000.
So where does that money come from? What budget are we pulling out of?
Depending on what department they're in.
So it's cost to the department that they
Correct.
receive these for.
Correct.
Are there budgets allowing for this? Or is that shortcutting a budget for a department?
Their budget will have a certain amount of money in the training allotment, and it's up to the department head to stay within their budget, really the bottom line. They'll have to cut somewhere else if they overspend.
So Brian and Jim, you're both in the audience, so I will call you up. And does this affect your budget?
Jim Rosvit, our Public Works Director first, and then Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. Good morning, Jim.
Morning. Yeah, it affects the budget. I just wanted to clarify too that the license that is the $3,000, $25,000 to $3,000 is a Class B license. Class A license, Class B allows us to run up to a tandem axle dump truck. Class C allows you to run tractor trailer and then your weights get up there. So we could be pulling a 1-ton little dump truck and be pulling our skid steer and a trailer. You need a Class A license to pull that. So don't let that fool you what you need in different situations. So
To clarify, if I may, how many Class A licenses approximately do we have in the city, and how many in your department have Class B?
I believe we have about 6 with Class A, and I believe my whole department has Bs. That's about right, Scott?
Yes.
Scott Duranko,
With the city of Virginia, including the park, including Public Works, including the ITMAC, we have 43 licensed CDL operators.
thank you.
And out of those 43, we have 6 equipment operators right now with our Class A, but then we also have 4 other individuals that have carried a Class A license. And referring to Jim's pulling a 1-ton, it goes by GVW. If your GVW is over 50, I think it's 62,000, you'd have to have a Class
Gross
A
weight.
license, gross weight, correct.
Thank you.
You can pull take a 1-ton truck and pull its skid steer and have a Class B license. It still goes off your GVW. That's how a license is done. Being that I've been licensed for 40 years now, I've been part of it for a little while anyway, so.
And you hold the Class A.
I hold a Class A, an unlimited Class A, meaning I can drive anything. See, Class A's, if you were to take our Class A with our truck that we have now, it has an automatic, so you're limited to an automatic. You know what I'm saying? All the operators that we have right now with the city of Virginia have unlimited Class A's.
So they
Do
can,
whatever we need to do.
so how many, I mean, we keep coming up with this. How many Class Bs is everybody required to have a Class B? How was that done?
I mean,
That was put in a job description?
that is part of their duties. They have to drive equipment that has Class B requirements.
Is there a possibility, and I don't know who to even ask, because I keep going back and forth and looking between policies and job descriptions and having staff do that. Could I get a book that has all of that information? Because I keep going back to read this and wondering, how did this get in here? I mean, this is costing the city dollars. It's costing our departments that do the work. It's coming out of their budgets. And as an employee, when you're hired by the city of Virginia, you want to further that, that should be on your dime, not on the taxpayers.
And may I say, the one thing that did change in February of '22, they changed it where it was regulated by the federal government that you had to attend a college or a classroom to even attempt to get your Class B or Class A license. So that's where the monetary value came in now. So that happened a little over a year ago, where I believe we were doing it in the past, where we would just pull somebody from a different department and say, hey, ride with this guy, and let's get some drive time. You go in, you take your test, and it didn't cost anything out of your pocket. It costs that employee $100 or whatever it might have been to get their license, where in the last year now, it's mandatory to attend the course on it, and there's no way around it anymore.
And I can understand that, but I'm comparing it to other job professions where they also have those stipulations. You have to have mandatory training in this, but it's not paid for. That's part of your job. And that's what I'm trying to get at is, where is it? I mean, we're paying for everything, for all the training.
And I understand your point too. Absolutely.
This goes back to, I talked to Malcolm Veeder this morning, for instance. He's the oldest employee that we have right now. He's at 25 years, and it stems back to employees before him. He had a Class B license when he started here, and back in the day, the city, because they couldn't get Class A operators and couldn't get drivers with Class A's, they were letting them take the equipment, like they do now, letting them take the equipment from the truck, and they were also giving them a $100 bonus if they got their Class A, because they needed them that bad.
How
This
long
stems-
ago was this?
That was over 25 years ago. And it was even before that this started. And out of the 43 that we have right now, 11 of those got their Class B licenses while they were employed at the city of Virginia, previous to having our lovely federal government step in and have to, for the individuals to pay this to get their Class B license, because they feel the roads are going to be safer. Well, it just put a financial burden on private companies, city entities, and everybody else. Halver Lines, for instance, they have their own training program, and they have their own trainer. They pay the drivers to do this training, to get their Class A license, to go on hand. And we've discussed this in the past. Maybe it's something that we could look into to get somebody trainable in the city of Virginia so we can train our own operators. You know, like I said, that was 11. 3 out of the 43 had Class Bs, but were able to obtain their Class As using the city's truck at no cost to the city, naturally, at that time. Then, like Jim says, previous to that, now we've had 6 people get this training, and then unfortunately, because of the past practice, has costed the city some money.
But we don't have to follow past practice.
Depends on how you want to look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Duranko. Thank you, Jim. I just want to, and we have the chief and the assistant chief in the, and so we have other professional organizations within the city of Virginia that have to maintain a license. Your case is a Class A license. In the city of Virginia Police Department, it's a license to practice law enforcement. In the city of Virginia, as all law enforcement officers, departments throughout the state of Minnesota, they have to renew their license every 3 years. And there's a cost associated with that. The city pays that cost for the licensure fee as part of their commitment to the professional development and maintaining that environment. So we do that for other entities as well, depending upon what licensure you're talking about. We're talking about the boilers license. We pay for that? You have to get a boiler's license. So those kind of things. So the question remains is that we do invest in our employees in that regard. I realize it's in the recent change in the last year, it's an additional cost. As Councilor Beyondis put it does put a burden on your budget, and maybe it's time for us to take a look at, I think it's based on your suggestion, if it's feasible for us to find a way in which to minimize those costs, have some in-house trainer to do so. But that being said, we'll first go to Councilor Johnson and then over to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. If I were employed full-time by Rockridge School District, yes, they do pay insurance. Every Wednesday, kids get out an hour early for a lot of stuff, but included in that is training, paid training. My license to be a sub this year was $35, and I just had to prove that I had a 4-year license. If I wanted to get relicensed as a full teacher, it's a couple of $100. I pay the licensing fee. But I also know that there are huge opportunities. MEA Weekend every year is a huge conference in the city that is free to attend. There's no free to attend Class A licensing seminars. So for me, it's unfortunate that it's $3,000, $2,500. Is that every 3 years, or could you explain what that $2,500 fee goes to, or what that looks like?
It's a one-time fee. It's to help you obtain your license, or they will have you obtain your license from it. Once you receive that license is good as for life, unless there is some exceptions in that, whether it's revoked, you got some paperwork wrong with your medical or exemption of medical, you might have to proceed it again, but I wouldn't see it being more than a one-time fee per employee.
I just got my fee for my license to renew my license for my Class A, and it's over $50 that I pay for. The city doesn't pay for that. I hold that license because that's what's required for my job, and I'm more than happy to pay it, because this is the only place that I drive truck anymore.
So the fee that we're paying then isn't actually for the license, it's for the training to obtain the license. Okay, and I appreciate that clarification, because the other thing I think this does is it demonstrates our investment in our employees. And we're willing to give you $2,500 to get the training to be able to stay in the city. And then that lowers our training costs later, because we don't have to train somebody else on the equipment to be able to do, and then to train them on the equipment in our city. Because doing stuff in Virginia is different than doing it in Evelyn or the Twin Cities or St. Cloud. So, and it's unfortunate, it truly is unfortunate that laws have passed unfunded mandates. That's a fun word in this room about that. And I think that if we know it's part of the budget, and I feel it's a good investment. Otherwise, there's other things that go along with CDL. There's other rights and responsibilities, just like a licensed police officer, just like a licensed teacher. There's certain things that are mandated by law that we can do to make sure our employees are safe, our citizens are safe. And that's part of the CDL, I think, and why we do it, is to be able to make sure that we are providing the best service to our employees. And I think that if we need to look at replacement, I know there's we've just opened up the additional mechanic. And I would think that person needs to have a CDL because they need to drive trucks in and out of the building or around town for test drive. So for me, knowing that and thinking, okay, we may need to invest $2,500 in that employee, either to do whatever, to me, I'm okay with that. And I think that the clarification that this is a one-time training thing and not a $2,500 every 3 years licensing fee really clears it up for me. And I think that's an acceptable use of city funds, because the taxpayers are directly benefiting from that tonight when it snows another 6 inches. Like, it's an immediate benefit to us that these people are highly trained and get continual training. Because you do still both have additional training throughout the year. There's always, that's why we close the city once or twice a year, is to get that OSHA training and the confined space training and all that stuff, which we provide and we pay them to do because it's part of what they need to do. So I think that this is a good use of our money, and I appreciate the explanation today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Before we go to Counselor Paulson and back to Counselor Bionich, Sherry Erickson, our Finance Director, has some words.
Hi, Mayor, Council. I just want to make sure that I got this right, because this has been in the city for a long time. Class A requirement is only for heavy equipment operators and mechanics.
Heavy equipment operators only.
And so
There's 7 of us.
the mechanics
And
won't need.
I'm also required to
Yeah,
carry a Class A.
right, the Public Works Director. So, but the rest require the Class B, which
Yes.
is,
Correct.
there's only A, B. So that's your entry, I want to say entry level, Class CDL.
We actually have one that isn't right now, but there is some restrictions on that employee sitting now, so.
See, back in the day when recycling first came out, we had a truck and trailer which required a Class A license. Since then, we've gone to a single truck unit, so we've been able to drop that Class BA requirement for garbage trucks and cardboard trucks and the recycle trucks down to a Class B. So an A is required. When I got hired, I was required to have an A, where we've been able to move beyond that now and drop it down to a B.
Thank you, Mr. Dronko. Thank you, Ms. Sherry. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think a lot of my questions have been answered along the way. So just quick clarification, Class B license runs about $2,500 to $3,000. And, okay, and then it's $50 or whatever to maintain your license that the employee pays,
Yep.
okay? Then what is the cost of a Class A license?
For Class A.
We haven't had anybody, but I think,
And we've been working off a guideline there too, where they were coming in and they were using our truck to do the training. They would come to our facility from the college with a trainer. Unfortunately, that trainer did leave the college now, so they're regrouping again. But we're trying to work a fee that's gonna work out for both of us if we're using our equipment or our trucks.
Okay, then that leads me to one of the other questions, and I think train the trainer would be a really good opportunity here.
And the county actually called me on it and asked what I was doing, because they were aware that we had started the process. And they're a much larger government entity than we are. So, but I think their plan is to have a trainer and work it that way. For us, I don't think it's worth our time or effort. I don't feel we can meet the qualifications to do that. I also feel that, I don't know how to put it, but I don't feel that some people I'd want to put in a truck or that anyways, any given day anyways. I mean, just because you have your license, I mean, we're in closed quarters and, a lot of these people, they might have their license but not have been in on a truck in 10 years or that, and then I've got to put them out in the dark plowing snow or hauling snow. I feel more uncomfortable about that than I do anything else, so.
So going forward, because I think what I'm hearing a little bit of what Counselor Bionich is saying is it's in the job description, and maybe it's not, I don't know if this is happening, but it's in the job description, but you're saying, if it's been 10 years, it's been a long, long time since they've been out. Are we kind of saying that there's employees that aren't able to perform even if they do have the licensure, and so we're kind of lacking in that? No, okay.
we haven't had any employees at April. We're going to use Chris as an example. She came from City Hall, worked upstairs there, started in 2012. She bid into the position at Public Works, which required a Class B license. And she was a little bit optimistic. She didn't know, but she has become an asset to what we need to do. She hauls snow for us. She runs the sander for us. She does a phenomenal job. Some people are nervous at the ability of looking at it, but it's not something that we can't take and try to work through it. Jim's patient enough to where he's sending people with us to help us move them on through the next step of what I'm doing. A Class A, no, that would be a different ballgame.
Okay, and but basically, we're saying we have 6 Class A license holders, correct, currently, right now?
That are needed for their job description, but we also have people that are in at other departments that hold a Class A because they had it when they previously worked here.
okay.
But have moved on to the ITMAC, have moved on to different entities of the job.
Okay, so I think most of my questions have been answered, other than you don't feel that training a trainer would be a benefit because there's not enough maybe time to actually train, or not enough employees that would actually, it would balance itself out.
I
for
think
the
our
amount of
cost
money.
to keep a trainer current would probably cost us more in the long run.
Okay,
And in our department down at Public Works, we don't, everything we have, the last couple of winters, we've had pretty snowy winters. We've utilized everyone at Public Works. We haven't pulled from outside of Public Works, from the park. I'll pull in garbage truck guys, recycle guys, and they've all had experience. They were all in their positions. So they'll come in and step, but we only have so many pieces of equipment and so many trucks to run. We're actually borrowing from public utilities quite often, so.
okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So if the county gets their own trainer, maybe we can work on an agreement with them and utilize
We might be able to
potentially.
shirt tail off of them is kind of the discussion I had with them also, so.
We'll continue with those discussions, Jim. Thank you. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. I do have another question. When this happens, is there anywhere in the documentation, the job description per se, that if the city pays for this, that they would have to be employed by the city for X amount of years, or they pay the city back for that?
Well, we don't have anything in the contract now.
We have never had anybody leave after getting their license. I mean, the custodial situation came into play. We'll use that as an example because I've been getting feedback from certain people that the custodians, they feel aren't needed to have this Class B license. Well, I'm going to use Buddy Mel as an example. He worked for the fire department. It's not required. He was a custodian. He was able to obtain his Class B license while he was a custodian. Then we had an opening at Public Works. A person got hurt. I can't remember what the situation was. Buddy bid into that position. And then in return, no, it was at the park because we had a guy leave. So we had a guy leave Public Works to bid up there. So then we were able to pull Buddy Mel in because he bid the job and he was able to fill in driving truck for us. That's an example of, like you say, of investing into it. And right now, we have a retirement happening, so there's going to be a little bit of movement, but it's going to get to the part where we're not going to have to train anybody for a while. But I can foresee unless something drastically happens, you know what I'm saying? But that's what happens when we have vacancies for a small amount of time because we're going to have one as an equipment operator, we're going to have one in another entity. So we're able to pull these people because they bid the job, they already are licensed, and they can come in and do their job.
For that?
Yep.
Now I will be Brian Silber. I have, this kind of spins off then into the pesticide and insecticide licensure.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Scott. Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. Question again from Councilor Beyondich.
So how many people hold that licensure in the Park and Rec?
14 individuals have that licensure. It is part of the job description for anybody with the title of utility worker. So those are, those positions are the 3 positions in the park and the positions, the utility worker positions at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
And we have 3 people at Public Works that have that.
And what would you use that license for?
Restricted use pesticides pertaining to the golf course, pertaining to, there's something coming up about the Dutch elm disease now that's going to have to possibly be used there, what I'm going to find out now. We've used it in the greenhouse when we bombed for them, what the heck are them white bugs called? Sealy bugs or whatever the heck it is.
Mealy bugs.
Mealy bugs, there you go. We've used it for that, you know what I mean, otherwise, but we haven't used it. And Brian, he's able to obtain, I don't want to use the word chemicals, but maintain something that we can use that isn't required for our restricted use pesticide.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Scott. Counselor Motley.
Brian, how long have you worked for the city of Virginia?
About 4.5 years.
And have you ever sprayed pesticides?
We haven't used any chemicals that require this license.
Thank you. Counselor Beyondich, thank you for bringing
Brian?
this up.
Brian, we have bombed the greenhouse since you've been here.
We've been using,
It was that they had Frank Judnick, before Frank retired, he had to go get the chemicals. He had to use his license and sign his information. And then last year, we did obtain chemicals from the golf course to do the baseball fields and the,
yeah, those chemicals actually, we did not need the certification for, but having the certification was beneficial because they've learned how to mix the chemicals and avoid overspray and things like that by getting this licensure.
Do you think it is necessary for your employees to all maintain this license in order to do their jobs?
Other than the fact that it is in their job description, we probably don't need as many employees licensed, but having it in all of these job descriptions, it is required.
Okay, thank you. Maya, thank you for bringing this up. So I'm an X-ray tech, as most of you know. I was hired, my first job as an X-ray tech was the City of Virginia, VRMC. The City of Virginia never once paid for my license. They didn't pay for my training. I paid for everything myself and applied for the job that I was attempting to get hired for. Worked for the City of Virginia, then the City of Virginia more or less gave us away to Essentia Health. Again, Essentia Health never paid for my continuing education credits or the cost to every 2 years to renew my license. Fast forward, most recently, St. Luke's is my employer. Again, they have never paid for my license or my continuing educations to maintain my license. I don't feel that the city taxpayer should be paying for the license on a job they're applying for. If we're in a situation where we are having a hard time finding an employee, maybe something could be made, or if we hire somebody who doesn't have the license, it is their responsibility to pay for the license before they step onto the job day one. But I agree with you. Thank you for bringing this up, and going forward, there's no doubt. I think we need to look into this.
Can I make a comment about the pesticide license?
Sure, and then we'll go to Counselor
Requiring
Paulson.
us to pay for that wouldn't be beneficial, because for one thing, when we get our pesticide restricted use license, we can only spray on the property of the City of Virginia. They're the ones that are paying for it. They're the ones where they're registering it. We don't get no mailings in the mail from them. We don't get anything. It all goes to the City of Virginia. So we can't take this license like my Class A or anything else and go elsewhere. We have to stay on the property. It's the only place that we can do it. And back in the day, originally when I got mine, because me and Andrew Judnick are the oldest ones that have had their license now with the City of Virginia, which has been 8.5 years now. Back in the day, if you wanted to do your turf and ornamental license, other people could spray at the golf course underneath your license. Whereas since then, the state, again, has changed their ideas and said, no, the only people that can spray a restricted use pesticide are the ones that are licensed. Just to refer to that, that's all I'm going to say is, I can't use my license anywhere else.
Could I just throw one more thing out? Just
Sure.
question. Hypothetically speaking, and I'm not trying to ruffle feathers here, but would it hypothetically be cheaper for the city to hire this out versus requiring it in everybody's job description for people that might not even use it ever?
I don't think so. The only reason I want to say that is because I'm going to go back to this last tree removal that we had. The city paid out $25,750, if I'm not mistaken, to remove these trees. If this would have been done correctly, because I'm not a fan of contracting out at all, being that my position with the union, our employees could have done that in probably 4 days. And it wouldn't have costed. So we have $18,000 right now paid out for getting our Class B licenses. We'd still be money ahead if we would have done that ourselves. But it would have had to been planned before November, and then actually now being that the snow. So if we could have done this, say, last November, when we had time, we'd have been done with it. Because the city, I'm sure, at that time knew that these trees had to come down. So that's how I feel about it, because we could have done it. I've watched these guys, they came in and took the ones and down in Super One in this weekend. We've done trees like that in a day. There's no bucket truck involved, there's no hive, nothing involved. We just cut the trees, we push them over, we cut them up, we grab with the loader, because we have the equipment, we have the know-how to take care of all this. We could have saved the city money.
Okay.
One thing I want to say also about licensing, we do have a couple licensing that we do require, sewer and demolition, where we have to have employees licensed in that, and they have to hold that license for the city. So it is their responsibility to hold and maintain that license for the city. So it's kind of a catch-22 on some licensing that, where do you pay and where do you not pay? In fact, next week, we're sending 3 guys to sewer training for 4 days in Minneapolis. I mean, it's something we need to obtain it and maintain that license, or we're in violation and we will be fined. So there's some stuff we do need, so I want you to look at the whole picture, that there are some other areas that we do need licensing. And it's the benefit of that employee to step up, because those employees attending the sewer class have been studying on their own time at nighttime, reading a book this thick that nobody wants to read, because they've got a test to take next Thursday.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, anything else on this subject? Counselor Paulson?
Mayor. My dad worked for the city of Hibbing in wastewater treatment, so I understand exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so I just want to thank you all for giving us the information. It's really helpful going forward. What I have a huge issue with and thank you, Counselor Bionich, for bringing it forward, is I'm just looking from our council packet. So this is the person, it's the name of the employee, then the department. I was trying to understand, the department is the ITMAC, and I was trying to understand, how does this pesticide license coincide? Because it's new pesticide applicator pre-certification A&E. And what then it's University of Minnesota Extension. We're saying that that's required in their job description? And so how did this person get hired without that? I mean, I don't know if this is a new person. I'm sorry, I'm just asking the question here.
It's not a new person, it's an existing employee. His position before that was custodial services, which didn't require the pesticide.
Okay, so this is now a utility.
He's moving into a
it's
new
utility
position.
worker.
Yep.
Okay, so as these things happen, so my hugest issue when I brought this out the night of the council meeting was the cost associated with it. And we're paying an employee, it says, well, personnel need to be replaced at a cost to the city. And then it says, yes, at a additional cost of $861.30. And so I'm just concerned as to how we're going about doing this, why we have to pay an additional, I mean, I'm sure they work shifts, right?
And that
So
would
why
be-
do we have to pay another employee to be there while this person is going to take this test?
When an employee at the ITMAC, for instance, it's its own animal because of safety. When there's one employee missing and they have to go out on the ice and they have to make ice and that for slips and falls, because we've had people unfortunately get hurt, that's why we replace this person. When we have vacancies at the park or we have vacancies at Public Works and that, we don't replace them, for vacations or comp or something like that, because we get by, because we have enough employees to cover it. But unfortunately for the ITMAC, that's where the overtime comes into play, because we have to have 2 people there all the time for safety. And this was the policy that the city had came up with, I want to say 5-6 years ago. It wasn't like that when I was there. But then after, I think one of our previous employees had fallen, and he got hurt, and we didn't have anybody there, because I remember working afternoon shifts and all by myself. It made sense to get somebody else there for safety reasons is what they did. But the
So-
INTMAC's bigger now, so.
And that's up to the discretion of this manager. If Brian
Yes.
determines that they don't need anybody else that day, he won't
Yep.
backfill that position. That employee was just nicely trying to put in a dollar amount if we have to fill the position. I don't think that's even a correct dollar amount, what they think it would cost to fill his position.
Yeah, because some days during the week, there's 3 people there, so you don't need to fill that position. Some days, Brian, like for instance, now, they don't have any ice in the arena. So obviously, if somebody was left, that would be up to the discretion of the supervisor.
Well, so this is, the
feel
dates
that.
on this is May 2nd through the 5th.
I don't know if you guys have ice at that, they do. So they have ice in one of the arenas, and obviously, there must be something going on to where they have to.
that's right. He's on an evening shift.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess my huge, so then we were told that there were 2 or 3 other people that were gonna be needing to get this training.
It's like the sewer school. Basically, what they're doing is they're going down, when I got my license, I chose not to do it. It was a choice that we could have, that the city does provide if you felt needed. I just studied it myself, and I went down and I took my tests. Where these guys are gonna go down and they're gonna go through the class for 2 days, like the sewer school, and then on the 3rd day, they're able to obtain their license or take their test.
And this isn't something that we can do virtually? I mean, to me, this is,
Not the pre-certification class. They don't have virtual, and they haven't had a class since 2019.
Yeah,
During COVID, they
unfortunately.
stopped all these classes.
so
Because I
they
have to
can't,
go
like,
on
read
March.
about this and learn about
Okay,
this.
okay, one at a time, please.
They can't learn about this or read about this virtually and then go down and take the test.
You can do that, yes, if you choose.
Okay,
But it's
so-
not an easy test.
But I'm not saying that. I'm asking the like you said, you get in the book and.
I
are there-
chose not to.
But are there classes that can be
No.
held? So there's
Unfortunately,
nothing
no.
virtually that the
Not for
university,
pre-certification. They have to recertify every 2 years?
Every 2 years, because I have to go March 28th, I have to go to the ITMAC, which they're holding a class.
A recertification class. and that
Recertify
is
every
virtual.
2 years at a cost of $145. Yeah, for $145 per employee, we have to go get recertified. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's 9 of us that are going.
so if you're talking 9 people at $2,100, that's a big.
Well, no,
chunk
it's
of-
just 145 once you get
$145 for the
recertified.
recertification.
These 4 individuals that are going down to do this class are ones that don't have their license. So they are going down to go through a 2-day class, and then they're gonna take their test to obtain their license.
Okay.
For me, I maintain mine, and so I just, under the state guidelines or through the MPCA, I have to go every 2 years.
I understand this is a requirement, I get it. My beef is the cost. To me, that's way too expensive to maintain a license that we have how many other staff members that are capable of doing that? And then if other people bump into those jobs, we're just redoing it again. And I think we need to change what we're doing here.
And this is a great negotiation thing, because if we start taking out that this person today doesn't need that license, but everybody else does, it's not fair that he's being paid the exact same wage that everybody else is getting paid when he doesn't have the
Well,
license.
then I would
requirement.
use that against the city and say, at that time, when those other employees, was it costing over $2,100? Probably not.
Yes, in 2019, this was the last time they had classes, was in 2019. We haven't had them since 2021 and 22.
Was the cost the city was incurring over $2,000 per employee?
I'm assuming, yeah, that would be the cost of the hotel room plus the class and,
Could be.
yep.
Because when I took my particular test, I had to go to the cities. So the city gave me a vehicle, I drove down there, I stayed overnight, so there was no overtime involved. And
If I
then,
call the University of Minnesota Extension and I ask them, is there any virtual option? What are they going to tell me?
The new certifications, no, there is.
Or the pre-cert, what are they going to tell me? If I make a phone call
I
today,
wish,
what are
believe
they
me.
going to tell me?
You can
they're gonna
learn.
say, no, you have to go to one of the classes.
I'll send you the
And then-
catalog, I have that.
And fortunately, we have a class here that the city was able to get at the ITMAC. Otherwise, for the last 3 times before this, had to go down to Duluth. And now they're not having one in Duluth now, they're gonna have one in Cloquet. I believe Andrew, just because of vacation and everything, ended up going down to the cities, staying overnight to get this recertification in, where was that, Ryan? Montevideo or some doggone place? And we have another person that's, because he's going to sewer school to obtain his license to bring the city in compliance with the collections license, He has to go to somewhere, I can't remember where Dan has to go.
I'm listening to you and
I
I'm
know.
following you.
Believe me, I am
This
on board with
price-
you. We have
this is
14 of us.
ridiculous, and it's coming, I mean, the ITMAC budget is
Right.
already
See, and that's Park and
a
Rec,
big,
Comes out of Park and Rec.
Park and Rec
it
budget.
says ITMAC,
That's
Department.
where
Oh,
he,
okay.
that's where he works, but this licensure is directly related to
Yep.
parks. So this comes out of the park budget.
That's what I asked at the city council meeting,
Yes,
and I
and
was
I'm sorry, I
told-
wasn't there, but yes, it comes, this is a park requirement.
Yes.
So this comes out of park.
Okay, for the sake of
I'm
the
sorry, Mayor.
people who are listening here, we should have one person talking at a time. So that way everybody can understand it. We can't hear, but the people listening have no idea what's going on. So if we could just limit it, I appreciate it, just one person at a time, that we can get the clarification for all of us. So please continue, Counselor Paulson.
Okay, so the reason I pulled it the night of the council meeting was because I had those specific questions. What department? Why are we paying another employee to be there while this person is? And then we were told that another 3 or 4 people need to obtain this. Correct. At a total of over $4,000, or excuse me, $2,100 per employee that is going to cost to actually do this. I was told that it's coming out of the ITMEC budget, but now it's coming out of the Park and Rec budget.
Always come out of park.
Okay, even though these are ITMEC employees, they're utility workers at the ITMEC.
Correct. They have the same job description as the employees at the park, which are also utility operators, besides Mr. Stabog, because he's a foreman. But he also is required to have the license.
Mayor, if I may,
Please. Counselor Paulson.
do those employees cross over?
Yes. Yes.
And with the amount of licensures that we have 14 employees that have that. Again, the question was asked, is it necessary? And again, it was stated that you can't basically discriminate once it's in the job description. So is there a point that we could have a discussion about how many licenses the city requires? And then those people that have the license are the people that actually do anything with pesticides above and beyond? If you're not using the pesticides that don't require the above and beyond that, the licensure, if you're doing below the license level, those employees don't need that pesticide certification, is that correct?
It's something that we could negotiate to grandfather the 14 of us that are in there already that have their license, and if they wanted to maintain those 14 and not bring on any past that, we definitely could talk about that.
Okay.
No doubt.
I think that would be a
This is a
fair
so-
discussion.
This is a sore spot with a lot of employees.
And I'm not trying to create a sore
No.
spot, Scott.
Oh, no,
I
no,
think-
what you're creating is actually going to cure that spot.
Thank you.
I know what you're saying. We've all talked about this.
I'm just trying to think this
Yep.
through logically
Yep.
and economically and from a budgetary standpoint, out of each whatever department head's budget, what makes sense? So if we could have that discussion, or you
Absolutely.
could have that, or whoever
Absolutely.
needs to have that, I will quit talking. Thank you.
No, it's something that, I'm going to be honest, it's something that I would like to stop and just maintain the 14 of us right now, so it wouldn't cost the city any more money. It wouldn't cost any more heartache to certain employees, because this test is awful. It is really awful. And in return, if we could save money with these pesticide licenses and spending all this and defer it, I hate to say it, defer it over to the Class B thing, which we use every single day. You know what I mean, where the pesticide we don't, that would be definitely something I would love to talk about.
Okay, thank you. And it's for staff, and, when it comes to contract negotiations, to take a look at the job description, make those adjustments as we discussed here today. Thanks for bringing this forward, Councilor Beyondich, and for all the discussion with respect to this. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add or talk to with respect to this? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Freely.
You know, Scott, I really appreciate what you said earlier, because here's the thing. When you guys know things that we don't know, I want to make informed decisions when I'm at this desk. And oftentimes I'm feeling like I'm not, and I just heard that today. And so feel free to intervene accordingly whenever you need to inform us as such that if we could have saved 25,000 or 7,000, whatever the net savings would have been.
Right.
We need to know that kind of information. And I would say the same thing with regard to to Jim, or even like Joel, or Freddie, or Jake. Like, for example, I would have liked to have had some information, some data from the fire department that could have been provided to me that helped me make an informed decision with regard to the rental court ordinance. Like, how in fact, how endangered in fact are the residents in this community? I'd like to have that information so that I can make an informed decision as to whether or not this is an advisable thing to be doing in the city. So in any event, those kinds of things are important to me, and I look to Britt to provide recommendations to the council. I've told that to Brian as well. Oftentimes people come to the podium, well, it's up to the council. Well, yeah, it's up to the council, but how do we make that decision without the information and data necessary to make an informed decision? So that frustrates me a little bit. Not you,
Right, yep.
I'm just saying, like, feel free to intervene accordingly when we need to have further information that might be beneficial to the city and the decision-making of the council. Thank you.
If I may, I've said this, and you counselors have heard me say this 100%. Fortunately for the city of Virginia, we have employees that are phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the union president for any, I mean, I work with these people in and out, and you guys have seen it, you guys have heard it. You're gonna still have residents that aren't gonna be happy. I mean, we just can't solve that. But, and you look at the other towns on their snow removal, on some of the other stuff that we do, and you know what we do, we care for what we're doing. You know, and fortunately, we have supervisors in all departments that have our backs, that understand what we want, and we make a notion, say, hey, how about this, like this morning with Jim, and he's like, sounds good. And up on north side we were to make your life miserable, trying to get out of your alley, but you know what, once we're done, the city people are happy with us. So believe in your workers, because we do our own concrete work, we do our own tree removal, we have carpenters that are phenomenal. You know what I mean? We can do everything that you want us to do. We do it. Where other towns, they contract out their cement work, their carpentry work. Well, I hate contracting out. I do, because I want us to do it all. You know, that's what I like. So thank you.
Scott, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, anything more on this particular issue with respect to the commercial driver's license education? Yes, Jim.
The one thing I did want to say about the commercial driver's license, and this pertains to all government entities, a lot of them run a commercial driver's license because that's part of your drug and alcohol policy also. It's mandated that way, so if you maintain that commercial driver's license, you're always under regulations of the drug and alcohol policy. That's how we get our randoms, that's how we get our, we deal with that scenario. So that kind of plays a big part to this also. So I just wanted to throw this out there.
Yeah, commercial vehicle drivers have a different statute with respect to those kind of things, maintaining a license with respect to alcohol, which is, the threshold is 0.04 or less. So if that's a problem, that adversely affects your commercial license. And if convicted, your license is revoked.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you. Thanks for that, Jim. Okay, very good discussion. Thank you for bringing that forward. Anything else, Britt, come before us today on our other items of concern?
No, I don't believe so.
Police Department, you're here and sitting, Chief Mattson or Assistant Chief, got anything more that you'd like to add that you need to bring up for the committee of the whole meeting? Okay, thank you. Joel, anything from the Fire Department? Okay, thank you. Any other counselor have something else to bring forward? Counselor Johnson?
I have two things. One, I would like to make a motion to direct staff to look at our city website and attaining quotes or whatever it is to make that thing friendly, user-friendly. It's absolutely terrible. I don't think it's been upgraded in several years, but I know that, excuse me, if it's not made a priority in this room, there's nothing the staff can do. So I'll make a motion to direct staff to seek out quotes and a plan for updating the City of Virginia website.
Thank you. A motion by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'd support.
By Counselor Freely. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item number 2.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in December, the council had made a directive to look at bi-monthly public meetings, open houses, whatever, and that hasn't happened. So I would like to make a motion to direct staff to plan an evening April public meeting, and I would like to have it at the Tri-Towers, because that'll give us an opportunity to talk about the redoing of the path and some of those things. But I'd like to see us go there the first time, and then look at, again, moving every 2 months, being out in the public someplace where they can find us, not in this room.
Okay, thank you. A motion by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Beyondich. Thank you also, Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Anything else to come before the council, other items concerned? I think first we'll go to Counselor Beyondich, and then over to Counselor Freely. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you, and not that this has to do with city business, but I would like to congratulate the Mountain Iron girls basketball team on winning the state championship.
It was a squeaker, 52-21. It was good, yeah, thank you for that. Counselor Freely, and then back over to Counselor Johnson.
Just quick public service announcements. The Home Sport and Travel Show is being held at the Event Center and encouraging the public to attend that. And then also there's an open house at the Alcott Park Greenhouse and Botanical Gardens from 3 to 8 p.m. on Saturday. Please come and see the value of that facility to the city. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add on to your first comment about the Homeboat and Travel Show, the Virginia Elks Lodge number 1003 are hosting a food drive there. So if, for the general public, if you're coming to the Homeboat and Travel Show, if you are kind enough to donate something for the food shelf is in dire need of repairs, and if depend on the poundage, we get whatever the pound weight is based on a certain formula. We get there's an organization that matches that as well. So if you could bring a food item of some sort, we'd appreciate it very much. Councilor Johnson.
Also, congratulations to, and I'm going to try to get this right, the Wolverine girls U12 on being third place consolidation champions girls hockey. So last night, the cupola was both red and gold for Mountain Iron and white, black, and green for the Wolverines.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So thank you very much for that. Anybody else have anything they'd like to bring forward before we adjourn the committee of the whole meeting? Bueller? No one? Okay, thank you. We now stand adjourned. Thanks everybody for our work. It's 11:05 a.m. See you next week. Have a good day.